Dancy Lagarde fans, you will be thrilled to know a book is coming out if you fund it. Via Unbound, we are publishing the Dancy Lagarde Reader by Alice Fraser and Dancy Lagarde, a glorious insight into the world of Dancy Lagarde, self-published romance maven and online bestseller. If you would like to find out how to support it, go to thebuglepodcast.com. If we get enough support, we will publish the book. That's a real thing that's going to happen. Thebuglepodcast.com to support the Dancy Lagarde Reader.
This is a podcast from The Bugle.
The Raven Throne looms in the darkness of the empty throne room. The decadent glamour of the court has retired for the evening to lurk in its richly decorated rooms and scheme quietly over expensive wine. In the abandoned throne room, a soft noise echoes through the dark. A shadow shifts almost imperceptibly and then detaches itself from the wall and moves in towards the throne. 1 step, 2 steps. Suddenly, a scraping roar and flames run along the channels built into the sides of the hall. Candles light themselves, and suddenly the shadow in the Raven Throne is illuminated, showing a hawk face and deeply sunken eyes. Were you sitting there the whole time? At last, he sighs. I've been waiting for the Gargle. This is the Gargle, the sonic glossy magazine to the Bugle's audio newspaper for visual world. I'm your host, Alice Fraser, and your guest editors for this week's edition of the magazine are Kai Samra, welcome.
Hello.
And Tiff Stevenson.
Hello. Hi.
We have a video version of this now up online, which means that there will be some people who are able to see that you are wearing horizontal stripes, Tiff, and vertical stripes, Kai. It's almost as though we coordinated this.
Yeah.
Me and Tiff actually did, to be fair.
Yeah, we had a quick phone call. I was like, can I have the horizontal because they actually are more slimming? And Kai said he would me up. Wow. If I tried to wear horizontal stripes, so
yeah, I mean, this is stripes, Tiff. Come on, it's not like no laughing matter.
Before we launch ourselves head first into the ball pit that is this week's top stories, let's have a look at the front cover. The front cover of the magazine this week is David Attenborough, who has, at 98 years old, finally been made an officially endangered species. He's posing provocatively with his consistent care for the planet. Good old David Attenborough. The sea is fighting back. It seems to be the theme of the news of the last few weeks. We had Gladys the orca leading her pod in attacks against boats, and now Sir David Attenborough's film crew being attacked by sharks on a 6-day trip to an island north of Hawaii. They were shooting footage of an albatross's maiden flight, which seems to me to be, how do they know the albatross was a maiden? But, don't you think of all of the people that anyone could attack, David Attenborough's film crew is the last that any creature on Earth should attack, because they're the only people who are fighting in your interests.
Well, you're following an albatross. You're already doomed, aren't you? It wasn't an albatross a sign that a ship was going to sink or that something bad was going to happen.
I see if you killed an albatross, because albatrosses were good luck.
Right. Oh, okay. I there's a lot of shark stuff in the news recently, and simultaneously an attempt to rebrand shark attacks. So I'm thinking of applying for the job as shark PR. Because they were like, can we rebrand these? Could you not say it was a frenzied attack? Could you say you were lovingly lacerated? And also, could you not refer to them as prehistoric? They find that quite ageist. Sharks aren't into it. Like, also, I think dolphins have had amazing PR for years and years and years, and dolphins are bad bitches. And I talked about this in my stand-up, but I think they're upset because they don't want sharks getting good PR. They call them no reverse.
But to be fair, I read that they went out in a blow up boat. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to be honest with you. Your bosses are sending you into like shark-infested waters in an inflatable boat. They kind of want you to die. Like, I feel like this is just a really extravagant new plan from the BBC just to sort of cut down on staff costs. Just like, should we do official layoffs? No. Redundancies? No. Let's just turn all the underperforming staff into fish food. That's what we'll do. It's a crazy thing. But also, at the risk of like offending everyone here, I don't know why David Attenborough gets so much love. I don't know what he does. I feel like he just talks, like, because he doesn't do any of the stuff, he doesn't film any of the stuff, he just talks over
he's 98 years old.
Yeah, to be fair, he must be the only white guy who spent a lifetime working at the BBC and still kept his reputation intact. So
I'm going to argue with you on this. I'm a big David Attenborough fan. Like, he'd earned his stripes. You know, there's footage of him, you know, on very, 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 very early black and white cameras, you know, approaching extremely hostile groups of animals with just sort of a benevolent British attitude of like, hi, hello, tiger.
Yeah, that's just pure British. That was what all the British did back in the day. Just going up to places, just like, I belong here. And it's like, he's managed to get away with it. To be fair, like I said, he's kept his reputation intact after a lifetime on the BBC. So if that doesn't deserve a knighthood, I don't know what does, to be fair.
I like the idea of Attenborough going up to lions and asking them why they aren't queuing. With making it about British stuff. Giving tea to giraffes.
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest personal tragedy of my life is that he didn't take the short window after Prince Philip's death to marry the Queen.
Oh,
that would have been national treasure. And was National Treasure squared?
Ask Nicolas Cage. I don't know. I think it's coming out in 2026.
Yeah, that's an episode of Don't Tell the Bride I definitely do want to see, to be fair.
And now it's time for your ads. Are you haunted by your horrible past, the sins you regret but can never escape, atonement at best, a Judeo-Christian fiction at worst, a petty footnote in a history written in blood? Try distracting yourself with a brightly coloured monthly sock subscription from KnitKit. 100% natural fibres to keep your feet warm, fungus-free, and soak up any blood from any mistakes you might be making right now.
Like the specificity of right now. Like Alice is just mopping up blood.
Well, I like to listen to my podcast while I'm going about my daily chores. Maybe your daily chores are doing horrible, regrettable things. I don't know. Tick them off your to-do list and then you feel a sense of achievement along with your sense of shame. And today's show is brought to you by creepy museums that aren't really museums. They're just a weird person's house who owns a lot of similar things. That's a place that you can go on a weekend. Creepy museums that are just someone's house. Your entrance fee is paying for someone's divorce. And even more racist dolls. And imagine a world far from ours. A water world, a post-apocalyptic world, riven by conflicts generations old. Imagine that, in your hand. Half a glass of water. And this is a slightly involved story involving AI, which is the news that AI, being trained on human-generated content, in some instances may be being trained on AI-generated content. So there's a company called a Mechanical Turk, which is meant to create content that then is training base for AI, and it turns out about 30% of the content it's creating is created itself by AI, that the workers are cheating using robots. Kai, Samra, you've stared into the eyes of an unliving creature. Can you unpack this story for us?
So basically this is, like you said, it's basically AI automating Turk workers, which I didn't know what Turk workers was. And it's basically people workers that do things that AI find difficult to do, like circling an object in a photo, or identifying the sentiment of a sentence, or resisting the urge to take over the human race, that sort of thing. And like the thing is, I'm not surprised, because like humans are just late. Like whenever I write an email nowadays, I'll essentially just hammer my fist down at the keyboard at approximately where the right letters are. And if the laptop hasn't automatically spell check it to perfection, I'm basically chucking it in the bin. So I'm absolutely not surprised by this. But I also feel like, obviously there's a lot of AI talk in the news recently. I just feel like we're in the really boring prequel era of like an 80s sci-fi film. Like in The Terminator, it just goes straight to Skynet taking over like the global military weapon system. And like we're at the really boring prequel bit where Skynet has just worked out how to select all the images of traffic lights and a capture test, that sort of thing. Like until it's able to like go into a biker bar, nick somebody's clothes and say hasta la vista, I'm kind of bored by it all, but also very scared as well about what's going to come.
Well, I would so much rather Arnold Schwarzenegger standing at my window with a shotgun than what happens now at the window of my car, which is just various beeping noises telling me I'm doing things wrong.
Yeah, I know, very patronising AI. That's the one thing I don't like about it. Forget the aggression, it's just the patronising manner of it all. Did you mean?
We didn't know that, you know, especially with the technology in cars, that it was going to get, I think when we thought the technology for cars became more and more advanced, it would be exciting. It would be like Kit, you know, but I just spend my days screaming at Mercedes and Alexa, which actually, you know, makes me feel like, as someone who just went to a crappy comprehensive, like I'd gone to a posh girls' school, shouting at Alexa and Mercedes all day long. But yeah, my car tells me. I used to have a car that said when I was running out of petrol, it said I had limited range, which I took as an insult as an actress. and now I've got a car that if I put my handbag, this is how I know I carry too much crap around with me. I'll put my handbag on the passenger seat and it registers as a person. It keeps trying to get me to put the seatbelt on the handbag. So, you know, sometimes the technology hinders us more than it helps us. But well, the interesting thing about this is that we've been working for Google for years. That's what Google Capture was. It was kind of done as a prove you're not a robot. Prove you're not a robot by clicking on this, and that was supposed to be an enhanced layer of security for us. But a friend of mine who works in tech was like, oh, no, this is us doing a job for them. This is us teaching the machines how to recognize a traffic light, how to recognize a bicycle, how to recognize a boat. So we're teaching them, and simultaneously as humans we're becoming less self-aware, like as life goes on, because we're just putting any old crap up online and on Instagram and our 57th selfie of the day, whilst the machines are becoming more self-aware.
I feel like, so I'm such a sucker for that. Like, I feel like anything to give away my details. I'm like, Pokemon Go, that's great. Take all my details. And then don't really feel like I've got any right to complain, to be fair.
And also, this is the thing, they're training us as much as anything else. We think that we're training them, but actually they're training us. Do you think any natural human would list a shoe as like baby toddlers, kids, boys, girls, lightweight, breathable, breeze knit sneakers, non-slip air cushion soles, slip-on shoes, secure transaction? Like, what? This is not natural. This is robots training us to help them do what they need to do in order to get money from us, which they don't even want.
I've heard you say stuff like that at a party, Alice. Don't lie to me. That's a great way actually to get rid of someone you don't want to talk to.
Yeah. I'm just a girl looking for man 42, strong jawline. Polyethylene plastic.
Does anyone know the etymology behind the phrase mechanical Turks? Is there a...
Yes, it was originally, I think, a steam-driven humanoid sort of robot thing that would do a series of humanoid-type things. It's like a Victorian-era sideshow thing, a mechanical Turk, and so it would like play the piano or seem to drink a glass of water.
Yeah, I love how even the mechanical workers are immigrants. Just like, we can't have a normal let's get a Turk on.
Eventually, all of the jobs, whenever you hear anyone kind of complaining about immigration, that is, you know, they're coming over here, they don't speak the language, and you're like, oh, the machines from China you've just brought in to do the self-service checkout. Like, eventually machines will take all of the jobs from all of us, and then are we going to be working for the machines one day? This is the whole point of Terminator, right?
I just feel like it's so depressing that we've gotten from a world in which, like, the Jetsons' idyllic future possibility was the idea that robots would do all of the tasks and people would be able to just chill out. And now the idea of robots taking our jobs fills us with dread because we know for a fact that instead of living like a Jetsons-like futuristic bliss life, we'll be thrown onto the rubbish heap of history. And now it's time for your reviews. As you know, each week we ask our guest editors to bring in something to review out of 5 stars. Tiff, what have you brought in for us this week?
I've brought in an import from America, but having spent some time in Los Angeles, you may have heard me talking before about a certain type of woman from Los Angeles who talks like her voice is running out of batteries. They call it the vocal fry. Because men find it sexy when you sound like you're on 20%. Please plug me in. So what has happened with the vocal fries? It started in Los Angeles, and then all of a sudden, it like transferred its way across to Australia. And there are now women in Melbourne and Sydney who are also doing vocal fry. And then actually, if you went to the right school here and you've got a bit of head girl energy and your name is possibly Millie or Imogen, you also have it. So it's like an STD. And I don't know why it's happening. America is to blame because we watch the TV and films, and I'm presuming, you know, it sort of started in a film there, but vocal fry has infected It's infected the world. It's like herpes for the throat.
Why do you think people do it? Do you think it's a way of making your voice sound sort of deeper and more authoritative, or...?
I think originally, like now I'm doing the Australian version of it, but I think originally, I'm trying to do the American now because I got stuck in the Australian one. I think it was it was a kind of voice that sounded had a slightly more sensual appeal to it. Like, maybe it's a harking back.
It's got more grit to it. It's more husky.
Yeah, maybe it's a hark back to those kind of like Hollywood days of like, women purring their way through words and kind of, yeah. Like, I don't know why. Like, Selling Sunset has it a little bit as well. But it just I find how language, or how accents travel and stuff quite fascinating, but I don't know how and why it's spread to. It feels like an affectation. It's not like a natural way of, you have to stress your voice to get it in there. Anyway, I'm gonna give it like 1 star out of 5 because I find it grating.
What have you brought in for us, Kai? So,
going along that theme, actually, so kind of in a similar way, I'm going to be reviewing mimosas. Right, so I met my girlfriend's parents recently. They're very lovely, they're very white, they're very posh. A lot of vocal fry going on in that conversation. And they lived in a place called Truro in Cornwall. I don't know if you've been. Genuinely, like when I was driving through, I felt like I was in that scene from Get Out or something. And knocked on the door. Her dad was like, "Oh, come in. We tried to make you feel at home. Would you like a mimosa?" You guys know what a mimosa is, right?
Yes, okay, but working class, it's called something else, right?
Yeah, because I didn't know what it was. So I genuinely just assumed that a mimosa was a mini samosa. So the whole way through, I was like, this old British guy's just going, "Come in, we tried to make you feel at home. Here's a bagora or something." I'm like, what is going on? And then, I had it. Lovely. It's like a Fanta that makes you dizzy. And also, the one thing I like about it is like a really acceptable face of day drinking. Like, I feel like if I cracked open a can of Stella in the morning, it'd be problematic. But if I do have a mimosa, it's like bougie. I think it's anything that makes daytime drinking culturally acceptable.
Bucks Fizz is what I would know it as. I don't know whether that's a class. I don't know whether posh people call it a mimosa and working class people don't have a Bucks Fizz.
I know it's like orange juice and some sparkly stuff. Does it have to be some sort of like champagne or something? I don't know. It was very good though. So I'm going to give it a 4.99 out of 5.
Oh, leaving a little room for improvement there, Kai. I enjoy that. Yeah. And now it's time for your sperm news. This is the news that a team of researchers in England and the US have created, at least they say they've created, the world's first synthetic human embryo-like structures from stem cells, meaning that eventually we could have babies without the need for eggs and sperm, which is either the goal or terrifying. Tiff Stevenson, you know what synthetic babies look like. Can you unpack this story for us?
Sure. I've had a synthetic baby on set before, actually. I don't know how aware you guys are of this, but when you're filming TV shows or in a film or whatever, they give you what they call a jelly baby. And it's a fake baby. God. It's a fake baby that you I had one when we did People Just Do Nothing. So it kind of moves like a real... So that you don't have a kid on set relentlessly, you sort of got to hold this thing like it's a real baby. And they call it a jelly baby. And they are quite terrifying when you look at their faces up close.
Why would you call it something so delicious? It's weird. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, let's just erase humans altogether, or just keep having babies till we're in our hundreds. Look, we're at this phase, We've got Pacino, De Niro in their 80s doing this in the sequel to Heat that we never saw coming. Just octogenarian Pacino and De Niro chasing each other through the streets of Los Angeles, competing to see who can knock up the most younger women, and the heat around the corner is jizz, quite literally. I feel like we are pushing. It's very interesting actually, because when stuff is kind of like pushed in this way, we are when men keep going into their 80s and 90s, like Bernie Ecclestone, in his 90s still having kids. Everyone seems to go like, yeah, like go on. And when women like are over the age of 40 having babies, everyone is incredibly judgmental. So this seems to like be like balancing up between like the science is quite ageist, but like this is sort of almost making it seem like allowing women to get pregnant for longer, because it's less about, once you get to a certain age, it's less about whether you'll be able to. It's about the quality of the egg. It's like Easter. Have you got Cadbury's or have you got some crappy store brand? Like, we all know which chocolate is better. It's Cadbury's. So it
Have
feels
your
like
eggs started to bloom?
Yeah, feels like this is an egg hunt we should be doing at Easter. Like the kids can take part in the chocolate one. Let's all go hunting embryos. We're taking to the streets with guns.
The terrifying thing here happens long before we get to humanoid, artificially created babies. I think the problem is that there's no clear regulations governing stem cell derived models of human embryos. At the moment, there's quite strict rules on what you can do to human embryos that you create in a lab. But if you're creating them from stem cells, there's no rules at all. So we get into this really horrible ethical quagmire.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also like we don't really have like enough laws for humans making babies either. Like, it still like blows my mind that I can have a baby. Like, I can have a human baby. Like, I can't have a mortgage, but I can somehow have a human baby. I feel like there should be some sort of practical and theory test. But I was reading into this, and apparently it's at the very early stages, so they don't have like a beating heart or a brain. So like potentially front running for a Tory leadership candidate there. But yeah, I still feel like, I don't know, there should be some sort of test for humans, some sort of hazard perception test for having a kid, just like any sort of red flags just for you to notice, to make sure they don't grow up to be like a prick or something, would be good for modern day society, I feel.
There's also a moral, like, just an assumption that if you have kids that you're a better person. That somehow having kids makes you better.
But I was a better person before I had kids. I'm just generally. I think there's a lot of sins in the world done in the name of the kids and the mortgage. But also, I think this is really interesting. If you do have a baby that's written from stem cells with no egg or sperm required, does that mean they avoid dealing with the baggage of their genetic heritage? Are they just not going to take after their mother or father and just be a sane human being? That'd be nice.
We're programming them. We're getting close back to the AI again. What's interesting is, like when you can have like in your placenta and stuff, that's all the stem cells. You can have those sort of harvested now after you have a baby and stuff. And because everything that you need, any illnesses that the baby might have or anyone else in the family can actually be, and you can, I think you can do that in the UK, and in France, they're like, no, they don't want that to happen. Because I think there was someone who came over from France to do that recently. I was reading about, which is kind of mad. Like the idea of a woman being able to keep and use anything from her, like it's been built out of a woman's body, and then they're like, no, it's unethical for you to have this thing that came out of your own body. The idea that it's unethical for women to be able to utilize something that kind of seems crazy to me. Of like, if you grew the placenta as well as you grew the baby, why can't you use that? It's like nature's medicine cabinet.
And now Spotify news now. This is podcasting news and news in the world of Harry and Meghan, which we don't normally cover on the Gargle here. We normally tend to avoid those stories, not for any real reason other than that I don't know why I should care about some random from a show that I don't watch marrying Meghan Markle. So we've avoided this until now, but apparently after signing a $20 million deal with Spotify to make a podcast, Harry and Meghan are jumping out of the deal after making only 12 episodes. Kai Samra, you're on a podcast. Can you unpack this story for us?
Yes, like I said, this is a story of how a Spotify executive called Prince Harry and Meghan Markle grifters. Now, I should probably say at this point, I'm quite thick, so I didn't know what a grifter was. I'm going to Google it now. So basically, it's like, a grifter is a person who engages in petty or small-scale swindling. And I'm like, He's part of the royal family. He's been pretty involved in mass scale swindling for a number of decades. Do you know what I mean? Like being surprised that a member of the royal family is just taking your money and offered nothing back is like being surprised like the dodgy skunk you bought from your local dealer doesn't come with a returns policy. It's not going to happen. But to be fair, I'm similar to you, Alice. Like I feel like working in the comedy industry, just like one less podcast hosted by like a rich Nepo baby can only be a good thing, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm the same. I don't know how I feel about Prince Harry. What about you, Tiff? I don't know. I just feel like I hated him. And then, I don't know, just something like, he used to wear like Nazi outfits and then suddenly he's like married Meghan and he's just split opinion. I feel like people on the left, like all comedians love him. It's like really split. And I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest with you.
The book was really upsetting and ruined Elizabeth Arden's 8-hour cream for me forever after he talked about putting it on his penis. I'm like, this was one of my go-to products. And now I've got to think about your penis and the ghost of your mother, weirdly. The ghost of how it reminded you of your mother. I think it's like, you gave them the money. That's what I kind of think of like calling them grifters as if like giving people purely because they have royal titles and a certain level of fame without any knowledge that they can back that up with any decent content isn't on the platform as well. I find that interesting. I'm like, oh, you're calling them grifters. Well, what are you then if you're just like throwing 20 million at people who don't have a track record of making this stuff?
Spotify have made a whole business just grifted on other artists, to be fair. So I'm kind of glad in one way it's happened. I'm like, the grifters have become the grifted.
Yes,
that probably doesn't even make sense. I only learned the word about 10 minutes ago.
The grifty. I'm
going to come in left field and say that it's Spotify's fault for not giving them a good producer, because as somebody who allegedly makes a weekly podcast, I know that it is like 99% the work of the producers in getting something done, and I just show up and say my stupid jokes, and then all of the magic is done behind the scenes. So, I feel like this is entirely Spotify's fault. This is it's like giving someone a horse but not a saddle.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to feel sorry for people when they've got a lot of money, when their complaints and their very nice lifestyle. But at the same time, I do sort of feel that they're between a rock and the hard place, and I don't know which one is the hard place and which one is the rock.
Yeah, to be fair, I only just started watching Succession. And I was like, I'm not going to feel sorry for any of these posh white people. And I suddenly got into it. So I don't want to make a precedent of it and apply that to Prince Harry as well now. I feel like that's a one-off.
Well, I mean, the good thing now is you can listen to his entire back catalogue in under a day, particularly if you do it at 2.5 speed. So, it's 12 episodes of the podcast. I think they will probably not keep the $20 million. I'm sure that the deal that they made would have some kind of, if you only show out 12 episodes of the podcast, then you don't get to keep the $20 million. Otherwise, that is an extremely well-paid podcast and almost as well-paid as I am. So,
oh no, I think they'll get to keep it. That's for the amount of publicity. That's the sign-on. That's the deal. That's what Spotify have done. You give them the money. You can't then turn around and go, oh, actually, we've changed our minds.
And also, the risk of like a libel case. Didn't like Phoebe Waller-Bridge get like 20 million from Amazon or something and then didn't really produce much? So
wow.
Not trying to throw under the bus.
No. But also, that's interesting because just because so I was reading about this and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a lot of money. But just because we haven't seen it, the content doesn't mean it's not being produced. So that doesn't mean that scripts weren't being made and then being binned off or not agreed to be good enough or pilots being made and stuff being. And so half the time, I think when these huge deals happen, it is also partially about taking these people off the market for anyone else to be able to use. So Spotify going, we want Harry and Meghan and we don't want anyone else to have them. And Amazon are going, we want Phoebe Waller-Bridge because if Amazon don't come in and do the deal, then Apple are going to pay her a shit ton of money. So sometimes it's about taking people out of the marketplace and so that you can kind of go, oh look, this is the jewel in our sparkly crown to. And
also, to be fair, at this point, who would not be willing to pay just a ton of money for less content?
Yeah.
And Apple News now, and this is the news that Apple is taking on apples. That is to say, Apple, the business, is in conflict with the fruit for its trademark. shape being an apple shape. Tiff Stevenson, you keep doctors away. Can you unpack this story for us?
So Apple wants rights to the image of apples in Switzerland, and apparently it's one of 12 countries where it's flexing its legal muscles. Apple is suing a Swiss company because they've got a logo which is a white apple on a red background. It doesn't even have the bite mark out of it. But you can't own apples. That's like trying to say you own the sky or clouds. And I think if anyone has a claim on that, it's probably Magritte. In fact, Magritte's got a good claim on apples as well. Son of man, that's an apple in the face. And what I like to do, I actually went to the Magritte Museum, and what I like to do is lean over someone's shoulder and whisper, "This is not a Magritte," which is a great art joke if you're into Magritte. But yes, so Apple are trying to say they own the image, rights to Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow's kid. Anything to do with apples, that they are going to sue for copyright infringement, which, like I say, feels insane.
Yeah, they seem to be trying to secure it in Switzerland, but not just that very iconic bitten apple shape. They seem to be going after every kind of variation of apple.
It's weird. It's like, I feel like it's not a coincidence that it's like, because they're bringing out that new Vision Pro virtual reality headset. I think they're just going to start, like, everyone's going to have one, and they're just going to start sponsoring just any inanimate object or living thing, like you see like a black horse and you just see it sponsored by Lloyd's TSB, or like a puppy Labrador sponsored by Andrex, that sort of thing. But then I went on like a little rabbit hole on this, and apparently, because I was like, why is that their logo? And apparently it's because like Alan Turing, who's supposed to be like the father of modern day computing, died because he ate apple laced with cyanide. And I'm like, that's such a weird thing to have, like the founder kind of father of your industry, like the logo being the thing that killed it. And then I kind of realised that's what Christianity does with the cross. So I'm not really... So maybe it wasn't the first one, to be fair. But yeah, I think we're sat in like a dangerous precedent with this. And I feel like with virtual reality, it's just going to go to the moon. Everything's going to be sponsored. Everything you see.
Or sponsorship on the moon.
I know. Which corporation do you reckon is going to get the moon?
I think Tampax, because the moon and, cycles, just 28-day cycles. I think that definitely if anyone should sponsor the moon, it should be a period product.
Yeah, I've just watched Wallace and Gromit, so I was going to say cheddar cheese. That's how different we are. That's how different our perspectives are.
Over the past couple of years, Apple has gone after a meal prepping app that has a pear logo, a singer-songwriter named Frankie Pineapple, a German cycling route, a pair of stationery makers, and a school district that used an apple as its logo, among others. It's also fought a decades-long battle with the Beatles music label, which was called Applecore, which was finally resolved in 2007. And I feel like here we have an instance of people who are being paid a lot of money, which is to say the legal department of Apple in the copyright area, who should just sit back and not. I feel like this is a Harry and Meghan job. Give Harry and Meghan this job and just let them sit on their hands, because this seems completely deranged.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking about, like those synthetic babies, definitely sponsored by Jelly Baby, I think, after Tiff's.
In 2010, apparently, they got a very small Swiss grocers cooperative to enter an out-of-court agreement, a binding out-of-court agreement declaring that they would never add a bite mark to their logo of an apple.
Wow.
Just, man.
So it's the biting. It's the biting of something that they're trying to. That's you can have the apple, but not if someone's taken a bite out of it.
I think they're just. I don't think they're just trying it on. I think genuinely, they're just anything that even dings the artificial intelligence capture sensor that might look like an apple is coming in within their remit, and they're just going to hunt it down because they've got the money. Why not?
Yeah, so that's where it feels like the David and Goliath kind of. I think that happened with I know it happened with the Glee clubs, because in fact I did a show for them after they won. I think they won their court case. So the Glee comedy clubs had been for years running under the name the Glee clubs, and then there was a TV show in America called Glee Club, and so they were like, no, we own this name. And I think they came a long way after the clubs, so that went through a whole copyright trademark sort of battle over who really owns Glee. Gleefully doing stuff.
I think the only people who really own Glee are 3-year-olds. Just a 3-year-old with chocolate smears around their mouth and an innocent look on their face. I think those are the only people who are really morally entitled to the word glee.
A freshly painted wall nearby that a handprint can go directly on.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. I'm flipping through the ads at the back. Kai, have you got anything to plug?
Probably my next show, I'm going to LA, so I'm just going to attune my ears to that vocal fry that I've seen, that I've heard Tiff do. So yeah, I'm doing the Dynasty Typewriter next month, and that's probably the next show I'm doing. So if anybody out there is in LA, I need to sell tickets. So
the thing to do is add more airiness and breathiness to your vocal fry, so then you can get vocal air fryer. Tiff, have you got anything to plug?
I will be at the Fringe for 1 week doing a work in progress. So that's at the Monkey Barrel at 12 from the 14th to the 20th, and I'm also doing Falmouth Cringe Festival. And if you haven't listened, then you should be checking out Catharsis, my podcast on the Bugle Network with lots of fantastic guests.
Do check that out. It's an excellent podcast. I have both been on it and listened to it, which is unusual. I rarely listen to podcasts that I'm on. We have a live Gargle at the Edinburgh Fringe on the 15th and the 22nd of August if you want to come up and watch this happen in real life. Also, I'll be doing my show in Edinburgh. I am Alice Fraser. Find me online at patreon.com/Alice Fraser, where I do my weekly writers' meetings. If you'd like to come and write with me on a Sunday, we have a writers' meeting and a workshop. So that's a fun thing that you can do. And at the moment, I still haven't figured out how much I should charge for them. So you get $4 a month for $1 a month, which feels not enough money. But take advantage of that. Patreon.com/Alice Fraser. This is a Bugle podcast and Alice Fraser production. Your editor is Ped Hunter. Your executive producer is Chris Skinner. I'll talk to you again next week.
You can listen to other programmes from The Bugle, including The Bugle, Catharsis, Tiny Revolutions, Top Stories and The Gargle, wherever you find your podcasts.